bound to be a lot of similarities. And so how many people are going to do this?
Well, there's going to be 10 interviews.
Uh-huh.
So there'll be 10 different views. You know, I was just trying to think of some what trends or styles came up with in the last 10 years. And one of the things I was just thinking about, maybe to start, were there any drummers, say, over the last 10 years that really knocked you out? People that you heard that, you know, wow.
That I hadn't heard before. Well, I guess Steve Gadd would have to be one of them, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I think now some people who are not quite as well known.
It's hard to come up.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and I'm trying to now put names with some of these experiences. Yeah, I listened to some guys that I had heard before. That still I heard them after they had matured and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
For instance, I listened to a local drummer here, Billy Kilson. I heard him playing at one of the Boston Jazz Society cookouts about 3 years ago. Yes. Where did this guy come from? And
yeah.
Playing up a storm. And then I heard of a young fella, Kenny Washington, with Johnny Griffin. And of course, there's some people that I've watched mature that in the last 10 years they've just become monsters. I mean, when people like Keith Copeland,
yeah,
and Terry Lynn Carrington, these people, of course, that I can't say that I'm not without prejudice because these are students of mine, but nevertheless, I'm very impressed with hearing what they're doing.
Jack DeJohnette.
Oh, yeah, Jack DeJohnette, of course. I've been hearing him more than 10 years, but in the last 10 years is when I've really zeroed in on him. He just took me out. Recently in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I should say last year, I guess it was, at the PAS convention there, and he was doing a clinic per se, but actually what he did, he played for like about 55 minutes, and then,
with a band or by himself?
No, by himself.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed at how he just, you could just see his compositional, skills, because he would start these little ideas, just some little simple ideas. He would just like noodle like a person noodling on a piano, and then he'd start to expand on this and expand this, and it would just keep going. It's like, gotta be, way up here. And then he'd say, well, okay, I think I've taken care of that. And then he'd noodle some other little thing, and just, it was great to watch,
How about in students over the last 10 years? I mean, do you notice a difference in, say, the kind of things that kids are wanting to study, or do you think they're more serious now than they were 10 years ago, less?
Well, I wouldn't say there's that much a difference in seriousness, but their orientation does seem to be quite different. I hear more students now really talking about getting into the studios.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that was unheard of when I was coming up, or even like, say, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, a person, when they played an instrument, they wanted to become a star performer, or play with a band, go on the road, play in a organization. I mean, the studio was thought of at that time, more like, well, if you can't do these other things there, well, you can go in the studio. That's for the guys who can read, but who are not really that, that hip or that creative, because of the fact that, most of the time in the studio, guys supposed to kind of subjugate himself to some extent. But obviously, people like Harvey Mason and Steve Gadd and a few people like that.
Yeah.
That whole perception has changed now because here are guys who are studio players, but I mean star studio players.
Yeah.
You know who they are and
easily identifiable. Yeah.
So in other words, I hear more people saying, well, hey, what about getting ready for studio? How about these things with odd time signatures and I want to be able to play every kind of style going and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Most of the time, guys want to zero in on a particular aspect, a particular style.
And you say now they don't want it so much anymore?
No, not as much. No, not as much. I mean, a lot of people do come to me with the idea. They say, well, hey, you're a jazz player, and that's what I am. I'm a jazz player. And I guess aptly a mainstream jazz player, I guess you'd call me. That's what I'm known for, and that's what I prefer to play. But that isn't all I play, and it isn't. It certainly is not the extent of my teaching. I just figure I'll teach a person how to play some music. That's all.
Yeah.
Then go where you want from that.
Well, you were somewhat of a studio player, though, right? Because you were like with Richard Davis and Jackie Byard. There was like the house rhythm section of Prestige.
Yeah. Well, that was you might in a way call it a sort of house with house player for Prestige for a few years there, but not to the extent of like doing like say what we think of studio players now doing 1 or 2 dates a day maybe. I think maybe I did maybe 1 a month or something like that. I was still living in Boston. I would commute down to New York.
Down to Van Gilder's studio and stuff.
Yeah. So I didn't consider myself a studio player in that sense, but I did a lot of recordings in that period of time from about 63, I guess, up to somewhere around 68. But one of the things years ago was seeing like basically he said about a studio player. He said, well, he's got to be a good reader.
Right.
They didn't necessarily say, well, he's got to have really a unique style, or he's got to. Most people said, well, they didn't swing. None of them could swing. Which that probably was a bum rap too, but certainly guys that you see doing these kind of things now. I mean, it's the same guys that you see out doing live performances that are just incredible players.
All right. How about the things like the? Have any feelings on the drum machines and the use of drum machines? Over the last few years.
I guess for me personally, in a way, I'm kind of glad I'm a little older and I don't have to deal with all that kind of thing. Now, I don't mean by that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but I was pretty good at mathematics and all like that, but I don't know. I would have my own problems personally, I think, with dealing with all this electronic type of things, because it seems to me the more I think about those, the less I'd be able to think about the music. Be thinking. In other words, I think now technology has pretty much taken over. But as far as percussion in general goes, and then even be more specific, drum set playing is concerned, it is true that just about any sound is valid in the right situation. I mean, in other words, even if you don't talk about electronics, there are so many things that can be used for percussion. I've seen demonstrations of utilizing the types of things that you would see in a kitchen, for instance.
Right.
Using it's infinite a number of things that
Yeah.
even just in a kitchen
Right.
is used for percussion. So as such, I mean, I would have to say that you can't discount like electronic drums or any of the drum machines and so on and so forth completely. But I have to say I'm glad I don't have to deal with them
Mm-hmm.
personally.
There seems to be. I'm basically an optimistic person, but you know Bert Corral?
I don't know him
You know him,
personally,
right?
but I know of, yeah.
He called me up. He's working on a book on jazz drummers, and he's going through the different eras, 20s, 30s, etc. And he said, so I'm trying to think. He said, who do you think are the great jazz drummers of the 80s? You know, the guys that just really came out in the 80s. And it was really hard. I mean, if you go back to the 30s or the 40s or the 50s, you can, there was rattle them off, you know?
Yeah.
And if you think about that, here we are in almost 1986, getting close, you know?
Yeah.
And it seems to be like there's an art of playing that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't hear it so much anymore, you know? Not like someone like yourself or earlier Papa Joe. There was just something about the commitment to the instrument or whatever it was.
Well, for one thing, I think it's become maybe more blurred, you know, as to what is jazz drumming and what is pop drumming and what is funk drumming and what is rock drumming and all like that. There's a kind of a blur there, so that actually, you know, even when I look at the categories as far as the modern drummer is concerned, you look and here's a person who wins in two different categories. So this is studio drummer, he's a pop drummer, funk drummer. Well, that very easily could be all in one category of like say a studio drummer doing all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to say, I think this year was the first year you had this category of mainstream.
Yeah,
jazz.
they seem to be trying to
well,
specialize it more.
Yeah, otherwise I can't see where I would have fit in, because if I think of, you know, jazz tends to be to me like something involving shing-jing-a-ding, and some semblance of that type of feel, yeah.
Triplet feel.
That type of feel, yeah. But if you really look at it, quite a way back, at least as far back as Dizzy Gillespie's influence on the music, Latin influence has certainly become part of jazz.
Yeah.
You know, and that's for the most part a straight eighth note type of feel. So you can't really say, well, now if it's not triplets, it's not jazz. You can't say that. So it gets confusing. I mean, because that was one of the things I used as a criteria when I said, like, say, the first time I heard a person playing the semblance of rock and roll type of time on the cymbal, I really thought this guy was trying to play shuffle rhythm and couldn't make it.
And couldn't make it, yeah?
Yeah. I thought he was trying to play ding 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 ding, and then came up ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
He couldn't make it.
That's wild. Well, even the early blues drummers in Chicago and stuff, that was almost shuffles or that type of a feel, you know?
Yeah.
Still like a jazz feel with a heavy backbeat.
Yeah.
And then it evolved.
But yet now, if you hear some of the boogie woogie, for instance, that was a big part of you know, the scene. You hear some of it with a straight eighth note feeling. You know, you hear some of the ding 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 ding
right,
ding 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 ding, and another person playing ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
I don't know. Becomes. I know one thing. It did hit me when I listened to Shannon Pozo playing with This Is Band. It didn't hit me right at the time, but now I realize what it was. Something disturbed me a little bit about it.
It did, yeah.
Because I was hearing sing, ding, 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 and the phrasing of the drum set and the phrasing of the horn players and all like that, and I was hearing
yeah. It's like
it's sort of like it doesn't quite mesh with both sound things are being played at the same time.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's true. Some things are played purposely because of the rhythmic interference and the tension that they create. You know, but I don't think that was the purpose. You know, not through as a rhythm section right through too.
That was a pretty good band.
Oh yeah, Dynamite Band. All of Dizzy's bands were really exciting and exuberant. And, took chances, you know. Took a lot of chances. But see, that's another thing too. Is that I guess when you come down to it, what we, for want of a better name, call jazz, is taking so many elements from other things and incorporating it into jazz, and at the same time, I think jazz is influencing these things that jazz is assimilating. For instance, now it's nothing to hear say a Latin percussionist now play like the triplet feel.
Right.
You know, I think that's what's going on. He hears that now. He doesn't play against this.
Right.
All right, that's what's happening.
Right.
So in that sense, I suppose getting back to the original question there. It was about what was the original question? I've digressed there. So, but it had
no, we was talking about the art of drumming, and I was saying how when you think about who are the great jazz drummers, you know, that of the '80s.
Yeah, yeah, but that's why I digressed a bit, because I'm not sure who we consider jazz drummers in the 80s.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if to some people, I suppose, if I said like, hey, let me think of somebody now.
Who could? Well, Harvey Mason's a good. You know, is he a jazz drummer or not? You know.
Well, he can play jazz. He plays good jazz.
Steve Gadd.
But yeah, both of them they played. But I think maybe they themselves would disagree in being categorized as jazz players. I mean, and I suppose, in fact, I know a number of purists say, well, no, they don't play jazz. I've heard of blue ding ding ding, but they don't do it right. They don't get it going.
Or Billy Cobham, there's another good one, you know.
Yeah, he certainly couldn't capable of playing jazz. He played, ding 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 ding, but he probably did these other things too. But that's it. I don't know how. I guess you'd have to say, well, now, who's a mainstream drummer of the 80s, right?
Who's the mainstream
jazz drummer of the 80s? And who's like a fusion drummer, maybe, of the 80s?
Yeah. You didn't have that? I mean, did anybody used to talk about, he's a swing drummer, or no, this guy's strictly a bebop?
Well, yes, I must admit, yeah.
They did?
Yeah, I first came up in the swing era, so I kind of bridged the swing and bebop type of thing, and yeah, I was saying, yeah, well, in fact, they had
Dixieland
terms when I remember, guys would say, like, when they first started talking about, at least locally in Boston, when they started talking about bebop drumming, they used to say, yeah, he's on the kick. I don't know exactly what they meant really by that, because I've since heard, a lot of British and rock drummers refer to the bass drum as the kick drum.
Right.
But I don't know if there was any relation between that and what we were saying on the kick. But when we talked about it, we were speaking about it, we were saying if the guy was playing like more on the idea of guys here were very much influenced. I remember in the mid-40s, after having heard Dizzy Gillespie and Art Blakey and Bird playing with Billy Eckstine's band.
Right.
You know, and so there was that type of thing. Yeah, there was a differentiation. Now, I came up, like I say, in the swing era, so when I was playing swing, I would say, well, hell, that guy, yeah, well, he's not, you know, he's not modern into the swing thing. He's playing the Dixieland.
Well, how about
thing.
the Dixieland guys were still around then too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they were, sure.
Yeah.
Which they still are now, you know. But the funny part about it is, I think as people, I won't just say get older, as they mature, I think then they have a little more tendency to have more of an open mind toward the things that came before.
Yeah.
Because, you know, frankly, when I was coming up, I didn't want to hear any Dixieland. I didn't want to think about any Dixieland.
No.
You know, Joe Jones, that was it. When you play like Joe Jones, I mean, forget it.
Yeah.
And then later, you know, it was so like, well, that guy's still playing the swing thing. I mean, he's not bopping. You know, he's not playing on the kick. Max Roach and Kenny Clark and those guys came along. And I guess there's that kind of tendency as you're young. But now, I think too what happens as you mature is not only your tolerance for music that happened before, but I think your respect for the roots and the history of the music is heightened. So and as that happens too, I think you start playing more. Along with your own style and so on and so forth. You start playing more of the things that you've heard before, you know, in other styles previous to that too.
Right.
For instance, now when I started out, I really didn't want to hear the bass drum going boom, 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 boom. And I still don't like to really hear it, but I didn't even play it before.
Yeah.
You know, bass drum was the last of the three essential pieces of equipment that I got.
Really?
You know, I had a snare drum first, then I had a hi-hat, and then a snare drum, which I played for a couple of years before I got a bass drum.
Yeah.
So when I got a bass drum, then the bass drum was like, that wasn't like just the bottom of things to be hold things together for me. It was like another voice. It was another piece of equipment. It was bigger than all the rest of it. I got to do something with it other than boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Of course, I had to learn later when I went to Lionel Hampton that, yes, you got to learn how to go boom, boom, boom. Then you do whatever else you want to do, but if you can't play at this time with it, then forget it. But, you know, as you mature, then it seems that you are then even called more and more by people of not just of your persuasion, but of earlier things too.
Yeah.
As well as, you know, some later type things too. I mean, I didn't. I revered Joe Jones, but you know, and I tried to play like him, and then I revered Max Roach, and I tried to play like him, but something did happen that I think is inevitable if you're going to continue to do any kind of growing. Is that since at some point that you get up on a bandstand and you suddenly discover that you're by yourself playing the drums. That is, that you don't have in your mind, you can't say in your mind, well, this is how Joe Jones would do it, or this is how Joe Jones does it, or this is how Max Roach would do it, or this is how you're by yourself and you got to figure out how Scott Fish does it, or how Alan Dawson does it. You know, you yourself, you just have to. In other words, you have to start listening to the music and reacting to the music on your own rather than what you think somebody else would do.
I wonder, can you remember a time when there was something going on in drumming similar to with what seems to be happening with drum machines and electronic drums? Like maybe, do you remember when Ornette Coleman first came on the scene and that whole, what became the avant-garde type jazz, no time, free form music and all that?
Yeah.
You remember how you reacted to that?
Yeah. Oh well, I was pretty. I was pretty put off by that.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, I thought at the time, I said, man, well, what is the drummer there for? If there's not going to be any time and so forth, and what's the horn there if he's not going to play any melody? Now, I have to admit that I still feel that rhythm and melody are two essentials of music. Of course, now we say those two things, however, once again, we get down to the point, well, what is melody? You know, there's melody that's very tranquil, so to speak, you know, which notes move smoothly from one point to another as melodies, and there's still the melodies where, you know, the jumps are going like over an octave and half tones and then fifths and then, you know, all kind of things that are pretty difficult to sing.
Yeah.
But they are melody. Just as a rhythm itself can be very simple as it was years ago. It can get to be kind of complex, but it still is rhythm. But I would say that, you know, in what I would define jazz as, there is some semblance of steady pulse. That is, not always, but some semblance. I mean, not the continual, not continually without pulse. You know, just
once in a while. Does anybody know where one is?
yeah, that's right. So give me.
But do you think the general feeling was when that music hit that, oh God, that's it. You know, it's all over.
Well, a lot of guys did feel that way. Matter of fact, I can remember, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, playing on a festival thing. And I'm not going to name names, but there was a well-known group, and they had a baritone saxophone player with them, who actually is a good baritone player. And his first chorus would always be kind of nice. And then, you know, he'd take it out. So there was another group of all-stars that was traveling. And I remember a saxophone player in this group coming up to me and saying, "What is he doing? What's he doing?" I knew the guy's name. I gave it to his name. This would be interesting, but I don't want this on the record.
Okay. Turn it up.
Yeah. What I'm saying about that is that I'm coming to a realization that I don't have to like everything, and I don't. But I won't refuse to listen to it, and I won't necessarily put it down because I realize from having been in that position myself. I mean, the older guys, the Dixieland and the swing players, were saying awful things about the young beboppers. Say, sounds like, what is it, Louis Armstrong said it sounded like Chinese music, and we were talking about the drummers. The drummers can't keep time. They can't even play the bass drum, you know, and they play too loud, and the cymbals are too big, and you know.
So all the new ones get criticized.
Yeah,
you know?
that's part of it. That's like uh, trying to make an omelet without breaking eggs. I mean, if you're gonna grow and progress, you're gonna wind up displeasing some of the powers that be.
What's your reaction if you page through a mono drummer at all the different stuff that you see out now? They've got, I'm just trying to think, different color symbols and a lot of cosmetic changes in drums and the drum heads and all that stuff.
Well, I sort of smile. I'm a little amused by it. I mean, it's the kind of thing that I doubt if I'll ever
right.
get into, because what I've admired, has been the sound of what things are. Now, I must admit, I've said many times when I've seen a drummer who control the sticks and do this and
right.
do that, I said, well, yeah, that's fine, but what about on a record? What happens on a record?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it comes to our record, that's as if I was saying that the record is the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a turnaround in that, because now you hear a record, and what you hear on a record is something totally different than you're bound to hear on a live performance, unless somebody has access to all these, technological
right.
advances
true.
there. So when you really come down to it, each guy does his own thing. I've never particularly went out for the flamboyant visual type of things. Certain things came about, however.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about it, Joe Jones impressed me very much. I mean, first I heard him before I saw him, and I certainly was impressed with the sound. There was nothing else that influenced me then. When I saw him, and I saw him do that solo with the cross hand and all like that, I must say I was very, very impressed. That now here, in other words, here's something which has proven itself sound-wise by my just hearing it, and then I come and see in person, and on top of all this, and he's got this wonderful visual type of a thing too. So in that sense, that's great. I have to admit, Jimmy Crawford.
Yeah,
Jimmy
great.
Crawford was
Bush
a
player.
fine player, really fine player. But and on top of all that, he could twirl these sticks and
really?
Oh, he was a master of that. And Sonny Payne too, I have to say. These guys were.
He was amazing to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't hurt that he could entertain you, as well as the fact that he could play. Now,
well, that's it. I mean, he could. They could play without having to do that. That wasn't their peak.
Yeah, that's it. When I say, if it's a case of now entertain or play, I mean, if you can't play, I'm not interested.
Right, yeah. Just come and watch somebody twirl sticks all night.
So, those kind of things in, colored symbols and all like that, well, fine, if you want that. But, I doubt very much if I would get into that.
Go out and get you some red symbols.
Yeah.
Well, when you saw Papa Joe, I mean, this is what seems to be the dominant attitude among kids right now. Did you feel a burning need to know, like, what kind of drums he had, what kind of heads he used, and what kind of cymbals he had?
No, that never even occurred to me. Because, frankly, he'd sound that way on any drums. He had his own sound. That's another thing. Individual sound.
Yeah, I've got that written down here.
Individual sound.
Lost.
These guys sounded like they sound on no matter what drums they played on.
Yeah.
So, I didn't rush out to get a drum set like Joe Jones's or anything like that. Now, everybody, just about everybody that heard Joe Jones play the hi-hat wanted to get that kind of a sound, and they were experimenting with cymbals to get that too. I mean,
even the cymbal makers, right?
Yeah, sure. But that's a little different kind of thing. That's not trying to duplicate by getting the same size drums, same heads, and
it's amazing,
and all this business. Well, I had a manufacturer told me, said, well, I'm not all that interested in having in having jazz drummer endorsees. This particular person said, well, who cares about Buddy Rich? He said, how many drums does he play?
Right.
You look at the average rock and roll star, he's got himself 8 drums maybe, or more, and cymbals, he's got like 15 cymbals. If a kid sees Carmine Appice and says, hey, I gotta have a set like that, man, I can see the dealer being a whole lot happier about walking in to buy a set
the Alan
like that
Dawson
than
model
buy Alan Dawson set with 5 pieces.
5 pieces. Yeah.
3 cymbals, and that's. But you see, I think everybody has a right with the free enterprise system. If a person has a business, certainly he should. You can't ignore profits and that part of it. Mm-hmm. But I still think there's still an obligation to deal with it and deal with the artists from some artistic perspective, and in terms of what they have contributed to the music and what they their feelings and their commitment to the music.
And I think the manufacturers could do it. I think they're in a position to present. Zildjian's presenting you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People are going to listen. People are going to pay attention. And you find, and I've asked this question of other drummers too, with what most drummers are forced to play today because of whatever demands of the studios, or how relevant is it for them to know about people like Papa Joe or players at Max or Blakey or yourself, or any of that kind of stuff? Is there anything they're going to learn from studying those people that they can use?
Well, I think anybody doing whatever field of endeavor, I think the history is important, because if a person knows where he came from, or where this particular thing he's doing, where it came from, and in turn where that came from, and so on and so forth, I think by knowing the background of things, that it can be much more convincing in playing whatever it is that he's playing. Mm-hmm. In other words, a person who plays strictly from the top it tends to be playing somewhat superficially.
Right.
It might not be all that evident to him, and it might not be evident to even people he's playing with, because they might be in the same position.
On the same floor.
Yeah. But, I think the history is very important in all aspects. Art and music and sociological, the whole thing. You really cast adrift if you don't have some sense of history.
Yeah.
It's not only what they say keeps you from repeating the same mistakes, but it's something that gives you a solid anchor in moving in a direction.
Mm-hmm. So you're endorsing Ludwig now, right?
Yeah.
Still. Mm-hmm. Have they ever approached you with, hey, why don't you play our new such and such a finished drum set and all this kind of stuff?
No, as a matter of fact, they haven't approached me at all. Anything. I've played the same drum set. Of course, it's holding up very well, so I've had this drum set since I joined Ludwig for 4 years. But, I don't tear them up or anything like that. They're in perfect shape.
Yeah.
But the No, they haven't tried to influence me. Well, why don't you play more drums or anything like that? I mean, I probably would if I had a roadie.
You would play more drums, you think?
Yeah, I probably would. But
like, what do you think? How would you expand it?
I probably would use maybe 2-floor tom-toms and maybe 2 or 3 mounted tom-toms, maybe. If I could work it out so I could sit comfortably. Mm-hmm. What happens is that it gets pretty difficult to sit comfortably with a whole lot of equipment, because you wind up having to either squeeze in or you have to spread your legs too far apart, you know.
Have you ever recorded with a set like that? And you have a chance to use it?
Let me think now. Have I ever used a... No, I have used a set like that, but I've never recorded on a set like that. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I did. Once. I was here in Boston with Phil Wilson. I used a drum set that had a couple of those
Rototoms?
Rototoms, yeah. I guess that was the biggest thing. There were 2 rototoms in addition to the...
Yeah. You think drums are being made better today than they were years ago?
Well, if you go back far enough, I'll say yes. I mean, that is...
the 30s, but no, well...
Yeah, well, I mean, the such things as double tension, you know, because I go back that far.
Yeah.
I mean, separate tension on the heads. I mean, first drums I had...
Didn't have that?
No, didn't have it. Now, they were not brand new when I got them, so, but such things as that, wonderful thing. Even such things as metal rims. I had some drums a while back that didn't have metal rims, and also when I was coming up, of course, we had the Second World War going on, and they had what they called victory drums. They were trying to save metal, so they were making the brand new drums. Even the brand new drums were being made with wooden hoops.
Yeah,
and wooden lugs.
And wooden lugs, some of them. Yeah.
I couldn't afford brand new drums, so I didn't have those. But I had mostly metal rims, except for the original snare drum that I got for Christmas, 1942, which I subsequently traded in and got a little 13-inch. That was a 13-inch drum too. But I got a little 13-inch metal rim drum, metal rim.
Oh, okay.
The body was wood. But
have you ever had a set, either a whole set or a snare drum that was just like the best? And
sure.
What? Do you remember what it was?
Sure.
What?
It was my very first drum set. I had a Slingerland snare drum. That was the only new piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I had a Gretsch mounted tom-tom, you know, kind of clamp on to the bass drum. I had a Ludwig bass drum. It was a 26 by 12. And I had a Leedy 15-inch street drum with a metal rim. I had never seen a street drum with a metal rim at that time. A Leedy, and they were all bought in various pawn shops.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the bass drum cost me $15. The snare drum was the most expensive thing. It cost me $39, brand new.
Was that a Radio King? You know?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
It was a Radio King, yeah. It was what they called Duco. It was two colors, black with a kind of gold kind of shimmer going through it, you know. And the Gretsch tom-tom was, I think I paid $10 for that. Oh, and excuse me, the most important thing, most expensive part was that Leedy parade drum. That's right. I remember I paid $45 for that. A lot of money, man. So, it was my first set. cost me about $100.
Yeah.
And yes, that was my best set.
Still to this day, you think that was the
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a bit of nostalgia involved and all like that. But if you say best set in terms of like what I felt comfortable with and so on and so forth, I mean that set. No set ever felt as good to me as that.
Really?
You know. And also, I must say that set, that set was stolen. The drum set was stolen. The guy pawned the drum set for $25. I got it back. You know, I had to pay the $25 on it. But when that was stolen, that was much more of a loss than any other job was to me. I had drum sets. Well, not drum sets. I had only twice have I had drum sets stolen. Once when I was with Dave. But see, by that time, this drum set was stolen while I was with Dave Dubeck. I was playing 5 drums. Mm-hmm. I called up Bobby Grasso. We'll get another set to you.
Right.
So, you know,
those were nice drums too.
Yeah, I enjoyed them.
Yeah,
they were nice drums. They're, but I think the drums in general that I've seen made pretty well. Now, people talk about various things like some people are purists in the sense that they insist on a wooden shell. Mm-hmm. I've played on wooden shells that I liked. I've played on some that I didn't like. I've played on some metal drums that I liked and some that I didn't like.
Yeah.
People said like the fiberglass, oh man, there's no soul to that. You know, I loved it. I loved the fiber when I was playing that. I think in general drums are pretty well made. I mean, some people, like I say, purists might even look at a wooden shell and say, well, now, I hear people talking about, for instance, some older drums that they say, well, where they used to make them out of solid maple rather than the plies. Right. They say, well, that's make a big difference. I don't think so. I don't. Not just as a blanket issue. I'm sure you find an individual drum that sounds great and an individual drum by the same maker that doesn't sound good.
That's what Buddy Rich is playing now. Did you know that? He's got a it's either 1935 or 1936 set of Sling Radio King drums.